This
Namaskar
meeting is
and
being
Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which is a science or study of fake lie or imagination. It's a very sincere endeavor to separate facts from fiction. And there are historical fictions which are propagated by interests to be as a real history. And unfortunately, what happens is that it creates commotion in future. It is said very commonly that a lie has to be defended by thousand lies, and the truth has to be spoken only once. All right, so that's our endeavor. I have a very special guest. He's an information commissioner. Is a official position in India. Without delay, let us welcome Shri Uday Mahurkar from India.
Thank you. Very happy to be with you.
So you
Yeah.
have written a very popular book on Savarkar, and I know it's selling also very well in India. So my question to you is: the India's partition is very poorly represented in the American and Western textbooks. It is almost shown as if the British brought development to India, and it is because of British the India is a united country. So can you first speak on that before we move on with the conversation?
What do you like to know exactly? Can you
So
elaborate further?
yeah, so how did so the propaganda in the American textbooks is it was the British who united India. Actually, they divided India, but they united India. And second is it was the British who brought development to India. That's a very commonly taught in the American textbooks.
Uh, I think India has been a united entity for the last, say, 2,500 years. You see, territorial unity is one aspect. Another is cultural unity. When Chandragupta Maurya was ruling over this country, territorially also we were one and we were much bigger. His territory included today's Afghanistan, un-Islamized Afghanistan. And this happened 2,500 years ago. So to say that it is the Britishers who united India is a false claim, as much as the claim of the medieval Muslim rulers who said that we were the one who brought India under one banner. India was already a united entity culturally and also at times territorially. So this is wrong. So when we talk about development, yes, British can claim that some part of material development which India has seen over the last 200 years was brought by them. But again, there is evidence to prove that the advance of science in the West was in many ways rooted in the Sanskrit texts of the Hindus of India. There was a writer called Dharampal. He was a Gandhian writer. He died in 2004, and he has done some exceptional work to show that how Sanskrit books on science were smuggled out of India and they landed in different countries across Europe, particularly Germany, and how the superiority of Germany in metallurgy is basically rooted in Indian Sanskrit texts. That technology has gone from India, but it is coming back to us under a German brand name. So these claims are false to a great extent, and therefore there is dire need for historians and observers at the international level, at the global level, to look at India's development and growth differently. And through Indian, I would say Indian specs, what they've been seeing so far has been through Western specs. The time has come for them to come to India if needed and see for themselves as to how India was a united entity 2,500 years ago. And culturally, it has remained a united entity over the last 2,500 years. So that's how I look at it.
See, the problem what comes is the American academics and American textbooks quote Indian named authors to say that. They say we are not saying it. It's the Indian authors are saying it. And they also say the answer which you gave earlier, that is India's nationalistic propaganda by the Hindus. So demonize Hindus for correcting history. So what do you have to say to that logic which is put forth actually?
No. See, I'll tell you one thing. The unfortunate murder of Mahatma Gandhi by Nathuram Godse gave a very befitting handle to Congress and those who believed in a very so what are you talking?
You said the Congress. You're saying the Congress actually.
So the murder of Gandhiji by Nathuram Godse gave a handle to all those who did not believe willingly, unwillingly in the united entity of the Indian nation. And these people, and in this group were leftists, people of left bent of mind. They were the ones who eventually became authors also, represented Indian history in a very wrong way, played with the Indian history. And so authors like, historians like Romila Thapar and many others of her ilk went a long way in projecting a very distorted view of India and its history. And their writings have come in very handy for another set of such people based in Western countries who fear that India, if tomorrow India becomes a Vishwaguru, if India becomes a superpower, then their monopoly would end. You see, how I look at it. You see, today's superpowers, they exploit smaller nations economically and militarily. Whereas when India becomes a superpower, India will look at the world as one large family in keeping with its ages-old worldview and slogan, Vasudev Kutumbakam. The world, after all, is but one large family. So those who fear India's rise in future, based on these values, which encompass the entire world as one family, those who think that their monopoly will end, they are the ones who are active in propagating these kind of things. Aditya.
So the another very popular misconception is that about the Savarkar, which you actually debunked in your book multiple times, and people still want to talk about his role. So in the Western media and I'm saying Western academia, because Western media only follows the academia of the Western academia. The Western academia has very little written about Savarkar and his role in the independence movement of India. So, what do you want to tell to the Western academics who have not yet done the research on Savarkar and his role in the independence of India?
I'll address this question from behind. Why Savarkar is being reviled for the last 20 years or more as divisive, as one who apologized to the British to come out of the jail. Every attempt has been made to revile Savarkar, to project him as a villain. Why so? The reason is that Savarkar, we have proved in our book, is the father of India's national security. If Mahatma Gandhi is the father of the nation, then Veer Savarkar is the father of India's national security, because he made untiring efforts to prevent India's partition, one, and then he gave warnings about threats to India's security, internal as well as external, all of which have come true. To put it differently, all the threats which India has faced in the last 70 years were predicted by Savarkar 60 to 80 years ago. Let us take Assam. In 1941, when the intruders from today's Bangladesh and the then province known as East Bengal were coming and settled down in the Brahmaputra Valley, majority of them Muslims, vast majority of them. That time Savarkar was the first person to warn that these intruders coming from East Bengal and swarming the Brahmaputra Valley in Assam will not only pose a threat to the culture of Assam, but also to the security of India's northeast frontier. That time Jawaharlal Nehru said, nature abhors vacuum, meaning where there is vacant space, people will come and stay. How can we stop them? Savarkar reacted with grim humor and words which appear to be very harsh at that time, but have come true. He said that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru's knowledge about environment is very poor. Nature also abhors poisonous gas. And how true Savarkar was, how true he has proved today. That time the Muslim population in Assam was 12%. Today it is over 35%, and a very significant and large number of them, of Muslims of Assam, have become Wahhabized. They have become radical. On China, when Savarkar saw in 1952 that China, which was weaker than India, much weaker than India militarily, in 1948 when it came into being, has overtaken India. In 1952, Savarkar told the nation and Nehru to do something about it. He said, after the way China has swallowed Tibet, it becoming militarily stronger than India poses a threat to this country. 2 years later, ignoring Savarkar's warnings, Savarkar also advised the country to become a nuclear nation in 1952. Had it become, it would have been a superpower by now. 1954, Jawaharlal Nehru came up with a principle called Panchsheel. A set of five principles, he said, if these were adopted by India and neighboring nations, they would be able to live peacefully with each other. Savarkar issued a statement against this. He said, Jawaharlal Nehru, talking in such weak terms against China after the way it has followed Tibet, will whet China's appetite to swallow foreign land. And I won't be surprised if China attacks India in future and swallows India's land. This was a prediction, historical prediction, which came true 8 years later in the 1962 Indo-China War, when India suffered a major defeat and surrendered a very large a large piece of land to China. That time, in 54, Savarkar issued another statement. He told the youth of this country to rise and pressure the then Nehru and Congress government to make India militarily strong. He said that Jawaharlal Nehru's Panchsheel comprises beads of the rosary. The rosary which is used to chant mantras. Whereas China's Panchsheel is machine gun, bomb, submarine, missile. At that time, he made two very significant statements. Where he said about military power and diplomacy. He said, military strength is the ultimate decider of a country's greatness. Thereby, he wanted to say that you might think that you are culturally strong, you can become a Vishwaguru, but you cannot become even a Vishwaguru without being militarily strong. And how true this is today is proved by the example of Taliban. Taliban has driven away America from Afghanistan, but it is powerless against China because China is right next door to Afghanistan. Same China which is committing untold atrocities on the Uyghur Muslims of Xinjiang province right across the Afghanistan border. Taliban is not able to take action against China because Taliban fears the military might of China, which is just next door. It feels that if it takes on China, then it will be finished. Just imagine the Taliban, which prides itself in calling itself a protector of Islam in the world and vows to take Islam across the world, is afraid of taking on China. How correct was Savarkar? I don't think there can be a greater example than this. On diplomacy, Savarkar said, no two nations can be permanent enemies or permanent friends. Their relationship is decided by their needs. Therefore, a nation who is a friend to India today can be its enemy tomorrow. And on the global level, an enemy's enemy should be considered a friendly nation. This was the advice on the basis of which Savarkar advised Subhash Chandra Bose in 1940 to flee India, take the help of Japan and Germany for uprooting Britishers from this country. Because Britishers' enemies were Japan and the Axis powers, including Germany. Now, how India suffered because of this? By keeping away from the ideology in the initial 50-60 years. In 65 war, Indian army was only 13 kilometers away from Lahore. But under world pressure, it accepted ceasefire. Moment was opportune to merge Pakistan again with India, which was possible at that time. Terrorism was not there in Pakistan at that time. But we missed the opportunity because of self-pacifist ideology of Congress, Gandhi and Nehru. 71 war. Mrs. Gandhi divided Pakistan into two parts and one felt that another Savarkar has emerged. But it proved wrong. Next year, when in the Shimla Agreement, despite holding 93,000 Pakistani soldiers as captive, India could not take back Pakistan occupied Kashmir. On the contrary, it gave back three Hindu majority talukas of Pakistan which it had won the 71 war in Sindh. So basically, Savarkar is the father of India's national security, and this is the reason why he is reviled. Because if his ideology is adopted by present and future Indian generations, then those who subsist on a divided India, namely leftists, namely pan-Islamists, parties like Congress, they'll have to close their shop. The moment Savarkar's ideology spreads across the world, across the country. One more thing. Was Savarkar's anti-Muslim? No. Veer Savarkar's vision of independent India had promised equal space, equal rights to all religions. Savarkar was against Muslim appeasement and radical Islamists. So Savarkar's battle was for equal rights. It was not for seeking special rights for the Hindus at the cost of Muslims. Aditya ji.
You made some very important points, and I was making notes on them. One of the things you said, Savarkar is the head of. Can you hear me clearly? So
Yeah.
Savarkar is the head of India's national security, and that's actually father of national security, and that's actually the reason why the West fears Savarkar more than Gandhi. And if you look at, and I want you to also throw, because I've read many articles and many people have spoken to me about Gandhi's role as a British loyalist and Nehru as a British loyalist, whereas Savarkar is a Deshbhakta, like he loved undivided Bharat more. So now with the Congress, Gandhi is saying that Congress should be abolished. What was that for? Why did he say that?
No, he felt that Gandhiji said that he believed that the Congress's job of getting freedom for the country is over. India has got freedom, and therefore it should end itself. He had his own views. Gandhi's views were sometimes very difficult to comprehend, But let you put something on partition.
Okay.
And Savarkar and Congress.
That's right.
It will really put things in the right perspective.
Please go ahead. Yes.
You see, Savarkar came out of internment in Ratnagiri in 1937. First 14 years of Savarkar were in Andaman Nicobar jail, cellular jail, and Kalapani, what you call, and last 4 years were in Ratnagiri. Then he was set free, but with some riders. He was told that you can live in Ratnagiri district, move freely, but you will not indulge in any political activity. So in those 13 years, Savarkar led, the nation should know, the most potent movement against untouchability. That movement against untouchability, which he led for 13 years in Ratnagiri, was perhaps of the same size or bigger than Mahatma Gandhi's. In 1937, when he was set free totally with no riders, he decided to join politics. That time, Subhash Chandra Bose and two other leaders of the Congress invited him to join Congress. Congress was the biggest party at that time. Had Savarkar joined Congress, He could have risen to any level within that party, with some compromise, of course. But Savarkar acted like a Mahana Pratap. He refused the invitation. He said that that Congress has gone so far ahead on the path of Muslim appeasement at the cost of Hindu rights that it cannot retrace its steps. And therefore, and to indulge in Muslim appeasement at the cost of Hindu rights in Bharatvarsh, the Indian nation, is betrayal of the nation. Is betrayal of the nation. And and then he issued two more statements. He said, I would like to stand in the last row of true patriots, then the first row of those who are betraying the nation in the name of patriotism and nationalism. He issued another statement to the Muslims. That time Muslims are demanding special rights to join the freedom struggle at the cost of Hindu rights. Savarkar said, Muslim brothers, if you want to join the struggle for freedom, you are welcome. We will fight together, which is Hindus and Muslims will fight together. If you don't want to join, still we will wage this struggle. And if you oppose, still we will be waging this struggle. Had Congress followed Savarkar's advice and this strategy, then partition would not have happened. 1937. How things stood. Savarkar is the first leader to see that partition is coming. He saw it as early as in 1937. Now, how he saw it? In 1930, Sir Muhammad Iqbal, the author of Sare Jahan Se Acha, Hindustan Hamara, who had become a pan-Islamist later on. He was a nationalist and then he became a pan-Islamist. In 1930 Muslim League session, which he attended, he said, I see the future homeland of Indian Muslims in Northwest Frontier Province, Punjab, Balochistan and Sindh, precisely today's Pakistan. This is said in 1930. In 1932, a Gujar Muslim from Jalandhar named Rahmat Ali Chaudhary, who was studying in Oxford, he coined the name Pakistan of this future Muslim homeland. And it was Jinnah who gave it shape. Now, another thing happened in 1936. When Sindh was detached from Mumbai province, it was part of Mumbai province. It was made a different province. Savarkar saw in it the seeds of Pakistan. And Savarkar said that the detachment of Sindh from Mumbai province is an Anglo-Muslim conspiracy. So Savarkar was the first person to see that partition is coming. And he kept on warning the nation against partition. His entire struggle between 1937 and 1945-46, when partition was granted, partition was agreed to by Congress, a surrendering Congress, is the entire period is Savarkar's struggle to prevent partition. He kept on warning Pakistan, Congress and the nation. In 44-45, he organized the Akhand Hindustan Conference in Delhi, where the country's foremost intellectuals stood behind Savarkar and said that Savarkar is not anti-Muslim. Savarkar is pro-nation. And whatever Savarkar is doing is for keeping the nation united. These intellectuals included Ramanan Chatterjee, the editor of Modern Review, the India Today of that time, and Radha Kumar Mukherjee, the greatest historian of that period. These were the people who stood behind Savarkar at that time. Those in the Congress today who are reviling Savarkar, let them answer as to why these intellectuals who did not belong to any party were secular in every way. Why did they back Savarkar if Savarkar was divisive and Savarkar was anti-Muslim? One more thing I want to say, how Congress surrendered before Muslim League. Gandhiji used to believe that there cannot be independence without Hindu-Muslim unity. And eventually, this belief of his became a model of Hindu-Muslim unity at Hindu cost. You know, when you have a joint venture, both the sides have to sacrifice. But Gandhiji model was such that for Hindu-Muslim unity, Muslim did not sacrifice. Only Hindus had to sacrifice. 1940, March 23, Jinnah demanded Pakistan in the form of a Muslim League resolution passed at the Lahore Conference of Muslim League, where a separate homeland for Muslims was demanded by partitioning India. Now, this happened on 23rd April 1940. On 6th April, Gandhiji wrote an article in one of his magazines, one of his newspapers, journals rather. He opposed partition, but for very different reasons. He opposed partition because he said this will divide Hindus and Muslims. But in the end of the article, he wrote something by which he granted Pakistan to Jinnah and Muslim League within 15 days of them making this demand. He wrote in that article that how can I prevent 8 crore Muslims from remaining in India if they don't want to. This was a totally wrong and misleading belief and article, because the day Jinnah demanded Pakistan, there are very many Muslim leaders in the country who opposed Jinnah's demand. So what Gandhi should have done? काम करो, तो बेसो दे बाहर, तो बाहर बेसो हमला. So Gandhiji's that time large number of Muslims in this country, Muslim leaders were opposed to Pakistan. So what Congress should have done? Congress should have formed an anti-Pakistan front of Congress, Hindu Mahasabha, which is Savarkar's party, and those Muslims who were opposed to Pakistan. Instead, Gandhiji chose to deal with Jinnah only. So Jinnah's stature in the Muslim community started going up, and proportionally stature of those leaders who had opposed Pakistan started coming down. And ultimately, to save their political careers, they also joined Jinnah. So Pakistan was a self-goal by Congress. Another thing, Gandhiji wrote this article on 6th April. He wrote this article again on 6th, again in June, same year. Same argument. How can I prevent Muslims 8 crores if they don't want to remain in India? And in 1942, 2 years later, Congress party put an official stamp on it by passing a resolution which allowed provinces the right of self-determination, which is provinces, if they don't want to be part of United India, they can opt out. So Pakistan was virtually granted by Gandhi within 15 days and cemented by Congress in the next 2 years. So Pakistan was a self-goal by Congress. Another thing which played a role in the formation of Pakistan was Gandhiji's belief in total non-violence. When Muslim League started riots in the country, the Congress was scared because it believed in total non-violence. And it held out even a mild threat to the Muslim League. Look here, if you don't stop, we will tell Hindus to retaliate. The bloodshed would have stopped. But the bloodshed continued. Lakhs of people were killed, majority Hindus. Thousands of women were raped. Majority of them, vast majority of them Hindu ladies, women. And out of fear of violence, Congress granted Pakistan to Muslim League. That's how Pakistan came into being. Savarkar had warned in 1943-42 a Congress leader called Acharya Kriplani that Kriplani, you think that granting Pakistan will bring a solution to this problem? He said, no. Just imagine those who take a nation by threatening civil war, and when they start ruling that nation, they will have weapons, they will have instruments of power. And you can't imagine what calamity in that case would befall India as well as Hindus of this country. So Savarkar, according to me, is a prophet, and the time has come to resurrect Savarkar, because Manya Sar Sanchalak ji of RSS, Mohanji Bhagwat, has written in the foreword to my book. The title of my book is Veer Savarkar, the man who could have prevented partition. He has written in that book, in his foreword, that this book is a guide on how to fight anti-India forces to make India a great nation. And I have written in my preface to the book that this book is a guide to preventing another possible partition of this country by drawing lessons from first partition.
No, very wonderful, deep reply. And I will urge the viewers to watch it again, the entire segment which you spoke just now. One last question, like I have for you, is that what efforts the Indian government must do to educate the Western academics? The problem is the academic version, not the political version.
I think Indian Council of Cultural Research has a big role to play in this because it has got India centers in embassies. I think it is their job to reach out to the Western scholars. You see, I'm sure not all Western scholars are driven by an anti-India view. There must be a large number of them who are ignorant. Such people should be educated on this aspect. And that I think it is best done with the help of these India centers, which are part of Indian Council of Cultural Research, which are there in all in major embassies across the world, Indian embassies.
Thank you so much, Uday Mahurkar ji, for coming
I
on the
want to show my book.
Yes, please.
Can I show my book?
Yes, please.
Just hold. I'll just.
Thank you. And viewers can get this book on Amazon also? Can they
Yes,
get
easily.
Amazon also? Okay.
Yes.
Viewers, get that book on Amazon, and you can see, you can read more content in detail. You know, he's an author and I'm an author. I know what we speak is just 5% of what we know, but in the book we
And
can
what
write.
we have said in this book, Aditya ji, we have said that India is witnessing currently the dawn of Savarkar era.
That's right. That's right.
Removal of 370, Article 70 from Kashmir is dawn of the Savarkar era.
That's right. That's right.
The opening of the Ram temple for the Hindus is a dawn of the Savarkar era.
Right.
The re-election of Yogi Adityanath as the Chief Minister of India's biggest state, Uttar Pradesh, which is bigger than many Western countries,
That's right.
is dawn of the Savarkar era.
That's right. That's right. In fact, the state of Uttar Pradesh and one more state of India is equivalent to the demography of United States. So United States president demographically is at the same level as Uttar Pradesh chief minister in many ways. Yeah. There are more voters in Uttar Pradesh than the president of India of USA gets elected with. So we know that, and I think the Western audience should also know that. Thank you so much for joining, Uday Mahurkar ji. Thank you for your time. And the viewers, please comment on the video and let us know your feedback. Comment is very important. Namaste and thank you.
Thank you.